Should you be cleaning up your garden in winter? Winter is just around the corner, and you've probably seen a lot of advice out there about when to clean up your garden or when not to clean up your garden. There's a lot of advice saying that cleaning up your garden before winter will remove the habitats that insects need to survive the winter. But I want to clean up this mess behind me. So what does that mean for me here? There are countless different types of insects that need your garden to overwinter and survive to the next spring. But instead of just knowing the fact that they overwinter in the garden, what I'm more interested in is knowing where they overwinter, so I can remove things where I want to and keep the things that the insects really need to survive. So I'm going to walk you through the garden and show you where insects need to live so you can keep those, and I'm going to take out the rest of it. So when it comes to bees, specifically solitary bees, they need hollow stems to hibernate inside of. And I've looked through a lot of my garden. I've only found one place where there are hollow stems. So I want to give you a look at what that looks like. So right here, I have the seed heads of Rudbeckia. And I'm going to be leaving these up because they provide winter interest, but they're also one of the few places in my garden where I've found hollow stems. Let me see if I can get a video of that at all. So that's the best shot that I can get of this hollowed out stem. These are very, very tiny, but what you're looking for is a stem that has a hollow middle to it. Now, tiny bees and solitary bees can use these to overwinter, but I was going to leave these up anyway. There, you can see the opening. I was going to leave this up anyway, so this is a good spot that if there are any solitary bees in this plant, they can overwinter in that. Another spot that's important in the garden are at the bases of clumping perennials like this grass here, especially if there's bare soil underneath. Bumblebees and other insects will climb under there and dig under the bare soil and bury themselves under here for winter. So I can cut back these tall grass heads that are just going to flop over, but I would want to leave this down here at the bottom, all this dead grass down here, so that's going to provide them a little extra cover. Now in this flower bed, you'll see that this is bare soil here. We haven't mulched this with compost yet. If we were using a bark mulch in this area, they wouldn't have that habitat to go underneath. So a compost mulch or a soil topper that's more like soil is better for insects that need to be able to bury underneath the soil here. Another place that a lot of insects are going to be hibernating is under tree bark and in holes inside of trees. These are really good places to look for insects, especially in the depths of winter. At our old house, fireflies used to hide in cracks like this around the trees on our property. We could find fireflies hibernating in the middle of January and February. A chunk of rotting log on the forest floor is a fantastic place to find insects any time of year. These are great places for creatures to hibernate, and while here we live on the edge of the woods, we have a lot of these things sitting around. This is something that can be really easily replicated in any size yard. This is just a piece of wood, there's my hand for scale, probably about 2 feet long, and this is enough space for countless creatures to live under all winter. Moss, as opposed to lawn, is a great place for creatures to hibernate over winter and also to live in all year round. It retains moisture, it gives them more food to eat off the roots of the moss, well, the anchoring points of the moss here, and also it can be lifted. It has a lot more oxygen and air underneath it because it's not so matted. All these things make great places for insects to live all year round, but also especially over the winter. All those little critters that help your garden thrive during the summer are still here in the winter. They are buried deep down. Most of them go down below the frost line so they can keep continuing their activity all winter long. Now you can put cover crops or mulches, or like here I'm still growing lettuce, to try to keep the soil in place to prevent erosion, but a lot of those critters have already moved far down below. There are insects hibernating in this pond too. There's some ice on here today. Ew. There's some thick ice on there today. I essentially run this pond like a large, low-tech fish tank. So I leave this leaf litter on top of the pond. It's going to sink down to the bottom. A lot of those critters that were living here in the pond all summer go underneath that leaf litter in the winter to survive. Then in the spring, they wake up, they start eating that leaf litter, and that leaf litter is what feeds the lily pads and the other plants we have in here. They also go down into the soil that's in and around those lily pads. So with this pond, I never need to fertilize the pond because the insects and the frogs and the tadpoles are doing it for me. And I also don't clean out this pond very much until early spring. I let everything else sit here, and this water is always crystal clear because those creatures are cleaning the water for me, creatures and the plants. Big rocks like this one are a great place to find spiders and ladybugs, beetles, worms, and ants hibernating over the winter. Ants usually build nests under rocks. It helps to keep them warm during the summer, and we'll find them pouring out from underneath the rocks. Ants are actually better soil builders than worms. And in fact, earthworms are an invasive species here in the north. So protect those ant colonies as much as you can. Evergreens like this Alberta spruce provide a lot of winter interest, but they also provide a place for insects to crawl in deep inside this canopy in here. There's actually some spider webs right there. I don't know if you can see those. And hibernate deep inside those leaves. So keeping evergreens in your garden is good for you and for them. This last location here is the most important of all the hibernating areas we looked at for critters, and it should absolutely be staying in at least part of your yard. It is very important to leave at least some of the leaf litter where it falls on the ground. There are moths, caterpillars, spiders, ladybugs. Absolutely everything is hibernating under that leaf litter right there. And if I go back to the edge of it that we've left in our yard, again, our yard is kind of big and we're on the edge of the woods, so we have a lot of it, but I'm probably 10 feet away from that base of the tree right there. So this whole band back here across the whole back of the yard is just left with the leaves where they fell. Now it does kill the grass back here, that is true. See if I can get some grass in there. But at least in this yard back here, my goal is to eventually get rid of the grass and bring out this tree line to be a flower bed all the way out to this point in the yard anyway. So the leaves are doing the job for me. So we're really lucky in this yard to be surrounded by really big, tall, deciduous trees. So we have a lot of leaf litter here, but if you have a small yard, or maybe you have one giant tree that dumps way too many leaves for you, as long as you're leaving a small area, say 4x4 area, you're leaving a lot of space for those insects to overwinter, and that's going to do them a lot of good. And you're going to start to see the beneficial insects in your yard increasing substantially. Most of the advice that I've seen about cleaning out your garden for winter is not to do it. It's to wait until temperatures reach at least 50 degrees in the spring. But around here, some years that could mean waiting until June to get things cleaned up. Personally, my biggest and busiest time in the garden is in spring, and I want to have the freedom to be able to work on the garden as opposed to cleaning it out. Also, I have a lot of daffodils planted in these flower beds, and leaving all of this garden debris up all over the place is going to mean that I can't see most of them. But knowing all the places now that I know where the insects want to hibernate, I can leave those areas and take out the rest, which gives me a cleaner slate going into spring, and also gives them all their prime habitats to live in. So now I can get into the garden and I can take out all this debris that I don't want to have sitting here. On the off chance that there are any insects that are living in this, all this stuff is not going to waste, it's not getting burned, it's going on the compost/brush heap. So I hope that you found that helpful. I hope that it gives you some clarity as to where the creatures really are living in your yard and what kind of habitats they need to survive. So if it was helpful, please let me know. Let me know in the comments what you plan on keeping for the winter in your garden. And be sure to like and subscribe for more. Before it gets dark, I just wanted to add on that I finished up the garden cleanup. Here's one of the piles. You can see, there you go. You can see kind of the stuff that I got rid of there. And I'll just walk you through things a little bit to show you what I took out and what I left. So it looks like a different garden at this point. There are a few shrubs that I left. This is a rose right here. And I left the mounding perennials. So you can see right here, there's a mound of grass. In the spring, I'll trim that back further. I also left some of the perennials that have some good structure. This is anise hyssop. Right here, I uncovered the new tunnel from the chipmunk, so I took out all the catmint that was around it, and hopefully the owls or the birds or somebody will take care of him. I also uncovered a lot of evidence of voles. That's what this is. It's a vole track. So hopefully taking out some of this, some of all these plants will mean that the owls and hawks and foxes can get in here and eat some of these. And for the most part, I left up things that have good winter interest. So I left up things like sedum, rudbeckia, anise hyssop. There's a tall grass at the end. There's some roses. Just things that are going to look nice when the snow falls on them. I also left up some plants like this one right here is Maximilian sunflower. It has some seeds that the birds have still been picking at, so I've left that. And hopefully the combination of plants that I took out and the ones that I left in will give us some room for the critters to live will give us some winter interest and clear out some of those hiding places that those pests have been using. And now I'm going to go in. It is absolutely freezing out here.